Hi everyone, I'm Senta. In this episode, we'll look at the plot of the tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, act by act. But long story short, Prince Hamlet's father, the King of Denmark, dies. Hamlet's uncle becomes the king and incestuously marries Hamlet's mother. Now Hamlet is depressed about all of this, but when his father's ghost visits and tells Hamlet that his uncle actually murdered him, then Hamlet vows to take revenge, and a bunch of people die. Make sure you have closed captioning on so that you can see the modern English version of any quotes from the play, and look in the description below for a list of characters and also a link to the play itself. So here are the characters you need to know about. Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark and his father's just died. Then you have the ghost of Hamlet's dead father, who is also named Hamlet, so Hamlet is really a Hamlet Jr. Then you have King Claudius, who is Hamlet's uncle, and who is not only the current king of Denmark, but he's also married Hamlet's mother Gertrude, who is the queen. Horatio is Hamlet's good friend. Ophelia is Hamlet's love interest. Laertes is Ophelia's brother, and Polonius is Ophelia and Laertes' father, and is also advisor to the king. Now, some other characters of note are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and Fortinbras. But Hamlet is a really long play, so those characters tend to be featured less depending on how people cut the play down. The play takes place at Elsinore Castle in Denmark just 2 months after King Hamlet, our Hamlet's father, has died. Act 1, Scene 1. It's nighttime, and the guards that stand watch outside the castle talk about a ghost they've seen for the past 2 nights. Horatio, a student who knows Prince Hamlet from school, arrives. Then the ghost appears. He looks like the recently dead king, but he disappears just as suddenly, and everyone is spooked. The guards and Horatio talk about how war seems to be coming, and Horatio explains that King Hamlet had killed King Fortinbras of Norway and had gotten some lands. But now that the king was dead, King Fortinbras' son, Prince Fortinbras, had gathered an army and was coming to Denmark to get the land back. Then the ghost appears again, and Horatio speaks to him, but a rooster crows because it's dawn, and the ghost disappears because he can't hang around. Horatio and the guards decide to tell Hamlet about the ghost. Act 1, Scene 2. King Claudius speaks to the court about how tough it's been since his brother has just died, and he appreciates everyone's support in his being king and his marrying his brother's wife, or as he calls her, our sometime sister, now our queen. Claudius sends messengers to talk to the current king of Norway, who is Fortinbras' uncle, about Fortinbras' plans to fight Denmark and find out what's going on. Then Laertes, who is the son of the king's advisor, asks the king to be allowed to return to France now that he's been crowned, and the king gives his permission. Hamlet shows up in a deep depression, and Claudius asks him how he is, and Hamlet mutters, "A little more than kin and less than kind." Because Hamlet is Claudius' nephew and his stepson, and very upset about the incestuous marriage. But Gertrude and Claudius don't really understand grieving or taboos, apparently, and they tell Hamlet to cheer up. Claudius says, "But you must know your father lost a father, that father lost his, and the survivor bound in filial obligation for some term to do obsequious sorrow, but to persevere in obstinate condolement is a course of impious stubbornness. 'Tis unmanly grief." He also tells Hamlet that he prefers he doesn't go back to school right away, but instead stays at the castle, so Hamlet says he will. When he's alone, Hamlet thinks about how depressing the world is, and he doesn't really want to go on. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Oh God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. And he's also horrified at what his mother has done. "Frailty, thy name is woman. Oh God, a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules within a month." Horatio and the guards find Hamlet, and Hamlet is happy to see his friend from school, but he asks him what he's doing at the castle. So Horatio says, "My lord, I came to see your father's funeral." "I pray thee do not mock me, fellow student. I think it was to see my mother's wedding." "Indeed, my lord, it followed hard upon." Thrift, Horatio. The funeral baked meats did coldly furnish forth the marriage tables." Then Horatio and the guards fill Hamlet in about the ghost, and Hamlet makes plans to go with them on their watch so he can speak to the ghost himself. And Hamlet is very suspicious that if the ghost is his father's ghost, then it might mean that there was some foul play involved in his death. Act 1, Scene 3. Laertes talks to his sister Ophelia as he gets ready to leave for France. Hamlet has been courting her, but Laertes warns her to be careful about falling for him because as the Prince of Denmark, he isn't really free to marry her, and he warns her to guard her honor and her chastity. And of course she's like, yes, of course, I'll do that. And she also says, hey brother, you take your own advice. Then their father, Polonius, enters, and he tells Laertes that the ship's waiting for him. But before he goes, he gives Laertes some very famous advice that ends with, neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. After Laertes has left, Polonius also talks to Ophelia about Hamlet and asks her what is going on between them, because he's also worried about her honor. Everyone's just worried about Ophelia's honor. So Ophelia tells her father that Hamlet has been speaking to her about love, and Polonius tells her not to listen and not to spend any more time with him, and she's like, fine. Act 1, Scene 4. It's nighttime outside the castle, and Hamlet, Horatio, and the guards are staking out the ghost. There are trumpets and cannons that go off, and Horatio asks what's going on. Hamlet explains that the king is partying and celebrating into the night. It seems excessive, so Horatio asks if it's a custom, and Hamlet explains that it is, but it's a bad one. Ay, merriest, but to my mind, though I am native here and to the manor born, it is a custom more honoured in the breach than the observance. Because despite all that Denmark has achieved, the neighboring countries just think that the rulers of Denmark are drunken idiots. Then the ghost appears and gestures to Hamlet to follow him. The guards beg Hamlet not to follow the ghost, but he does, and the guards are worried about what all of this means. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Act 1, Scene 5. When they're alone, the ghost tells Hamlet that he is his father, and that he is doomed to walk through the nights and burn in fires during the days for all of his sins. He says he was murdered by his brother Claudius. Then he rails on about his wife Gertrude because she was so easily seduced by Claudius. He tells Hamlet he just can't let that go on. Let not the royal bed of Denmark be a couch for luxury and damned incest. He then tells Hamlet the details of his murder. While he was sleeping in the orchard, Claudius poured poison in his ear, killing him without him even having a chance to clear his conscience or getting last rites, and that's why he's damned. The ghost tells Hamlet he has to get revenge for his murder, but to leave his mother out of it. Then the ghost has to leave because dawn is coming, and as he disappears, he commands Hamlet, remember me. Hamlet swears he will do nothing but think about how to take revenge on his uncle. Then the guards catch up to Hamlet, and he asks them to swear to never tell anybody about what just happened. They say that they won't, but Hamlet's like, no, really, swear it. And then the ghost is like, swear! And the ghost tears at the ground beneath their feet. Horatio can't believe how strange everything is, and Hamlet says, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Then Hamlet says that he may have to act a little crazy, but no one who is there can ever let on that they know anything about that or the ghost. That you at such time seeing me never shall with arms encumbered thus, or this head shake, or by pronouncing of some doubtful phrase as, well, we know, or we couldn't if we would, or if we list to speak, or there be, and if there might, or such ambiguous giving out to note that you know aught of me. And everyone swears on Hamlet's sword. And as they leave, Hamlet says, the time is out of joint. O cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. Act 2, Scene 1. Polonius gives instructions to a man to go to France and find out what is going on with his son Laertes there, and to see if he's been up to any bad behavior. Then Ophelia comes in upset and tells how Hamlet came to visit her dressed very strangely and acting pretty crazy. Polonius thinks this is because he told Ophelia to reject Hamlet, and she did that, and that Hamlet just couldn't take it, so he thinks they should tell King Claudius about all of this. Act 2, Scene 2. Sometime later in the castle, King Claudius and Queen Gertrude greet Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Hamlet's childhood friends. Claudius has sent for them because he thinks that maybe they can figure out what's going on with Hamlet or help him become himself again. Just then, messengers arrived to tell Claudius that when the King of Norway heard what Fortinbras was doing, he made him promise not to make war with Denmark, but told him instead to take the army to fight in Poland, and they were now requesting that Claudius let them pass safely through Denmark on the way there. Then Polonius tells Claudius that he's found the source of why Hamlet is acting so mad. Since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. He produces a love letter that Hamlet wrote to Ophelia. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. Claudius asks if Ophelia has been receptive to Hamlet's love, and Polonius says that he has advised her not to be, and that he thinks that this is the reason that Hamlet is so depressed and so crazy. The rejection was just too much for him. Polonius and Claudius make a plan to have Ophelia run into Hamlet while they listen from behind a tapestry. Very sneaky. Then Claudius and Gertrude leave, and Hamlet comes in and talks with Polonius. Hamlet is acting crazy on purpose, and although Polonius is buying it, he still observes, though this be madness, yet there is method in't. Polonius leaves, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern find Hamlet. He's very happy to see them, and they all make a couple of dirty jokes, but then the mood turns serious when Hamlet tells them that he thinks that Denmark is like a prison. Rosencrantz doesn't think Denmark's like a prison, so Hamlet observes, Why then, 'tis none to you, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me, it is a prison. Hamlet also tells his old friends that he isn't doing well. Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space were it not that I have bad dreams. Hamlet is kind of suspicious of why his friends have suddenly come and asks them if they were sent for. They admit that they were. Then Hamlet tells them how dark his worldview is in a very famous speech that starts with, I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern tell Hamlet that a troupe of actors are on their way to the castle, and they had hoped that that would cheer him up. Hamlet does in fact get excited because he just got a cunning plan. And then Polonius announces the actors. The best actors in the world, either for tragedy, comedy, history, pastoral, pastoral comical, historical pastoral, tragical historical, tragical comical historical, pastoral, scene indivisible, or poem unlimited. Seneca cannot be too heavy, nor Plautus too light. For the law of writ and the liberty, these are the only men. Hamlet continues to act kind of crazy to confuse Polonius. Then Hamlet, who loves actors, asks him to recite a favorite drama piece. When they're done, he asks Polonius to look after the troupe. Good my lord, will you see the players well bestowed? Do you hear? Let them be well used, for they are the abstract and brief chronicles of the time. After your death you were better have a bad epitaph than their ill report while you live. Polonius says he will give them everything they deserve, but Hamlet warns, God's bodykins, man, much better. Use every man after his desert, and who should scape whipping? Use them after your own honor and dignity. The less they deserve, the more merit is in your bounty. Then before everyone leaves, Hamlet tells the leader of the actors that he'd like them to do a well-known play about a murder, but with some additional lines that Hamlet will write. When he's alone, Hamlet thinks over how much he despises his uncle, and he really wants to do something, but he feels like a coward because he just doesn't act on it. But he has a plan to see if his uncle looks guilty when he watches the play, including the changes that Hamlet will write to make it match his uncle's dirty deeds even more. Because after all, the ghost might have just been the devil in disguise trying to trick Hamlet and damn him. The spirit I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. But if Claudius does look guilty, Hamlet will take his revenge. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king.